Today's webinar, we're going to focus on the field profitability, trying to analyze it right down to the field, farm, acre, bushel level. And really want to point out that everything that we're doing today can be done in Traction Plus. So if you've got the Plus level, a lot of things that you see today will look familiar to you. I don't think we're going to venture outside of Plus today. So if you've got Plus or Pro, you'll be able to do these things that we're going to show you today. Also, we'll be touching on the inventory piece, probably not so much the grain side of it, but the input side definitely will be setting up inputs and purchasing them and allocating the fields. So Scott will kind of walk you through these things here today that you're seeing on the screen. Assigning crop zones is the first thing that you got to do for 2026. Then he's going to go through some examples of input inventory with field operations. He's going to do some field records with it and then go into the analysis side for the field profitability. So just wanted to kind of set the tone for the webinar this morning for you all. And Scott, I will let you take it from here.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So what I'm going to do this morning is really start out from scratch. We're going to take a field, assign a crop to it. We're going to go through kind of how you would go through buying a seed, planting that seed to the field, and show how the cost gets to the field. So what I'm going to do is fairly simple, but the goal is kind of start building to see where the cost, how you're getting cost on a field basis. So today I'll focus on input costs, seed, chemical, fertilizer. If we've got time, we may throw some other cost in there and maybe do a harvest to get a cost per bushel. So this one today will all be focused on inputs. There's another session in 2 weeks where we get more into equipment and overhead and other costs. So, and again, all this kind of builds on it. So what we're going to do is just start out by saying, okay, so I'm starting the year. I now want to go in and just say, what crops am I going to put in the year or put to my different fields? And if you haven't already done this, the field operations area has a section for crop years. And crop years, I can go, if I've been using traction for a few years, I can switch back to previous years, see what years have been there. This year then, once you roll into 26, this is where you'll go in and assign the crops you expect to plant in 26. Little feature here a lot of people miss. If you've been using traction for a few years, there's an option down here to show crop history. So this is just a way to see kind of what the crops have been over the last few years. I'm just going to focus on the 26. To go in and assign the crops to the fields, I'm just going to enable the edit option. And basically assigning crops to fields is pretty simple. I just go in and we're going to be working with this home field down here and pick my crop from the list. So we're going to say that home field has grain corn in it. So a couple things to let you know on these or assigning crops to fields. You can really do this anytime. I know a lot of people will do this like December, January for their planning purposes. The main things you know, if maybe I want to do corn in there and I get rained out and switch to beans, these crops can be changed anytime up until you do a harvest record. So once I put a harvest record for this field on corn, at that point it's set, but anytime before that, I can change that. So if I forget to update it and maybe I bring in some chemical records or fertilizer records and I forget to update the crop, not a big deal. I can go back and fix it. So a couple other things on these harvest products. If I take a field here, we'll look at this Haynes number 4 field. There's a button over here that when I click on that, it's going to give me a second line for that field. So this is all designed if I'm going to have 2 crops in a field. So maybe if this field is going to be double cropped and I'm going to start with wheat and then follow up with beans afterwards, I could go in and say, okay, I'm going to have wheat there and I'm also going to have soybeans there. And then I can put the number of acres for each of those. In these cases, I'll say they're both 100 acres. This in production, really what this in production does is that anytime I enter a field record, it's only going to let me select the crops that are in production. So technically, I probably, like with the wheat, want to leave the wheat in production up until after my harvest and then switch my soybeans on. That just makes it when I get my John Deere, my climate data, it's seeing the current crop that's there. The other one, if maybe this Haynes number 5 field, maybe this is one that I started planting it. I was planting corn to it, and halfway through I got rained out and switched to beans. What this will let me do is go in and say, okay, so I've got maybe 50 acres of corn and 50 acres of beans. And those are both in production right now. And that lets me have multiple crops to a field. So if you ever get in that situation where you've got more than one crop, you're splitting a field that way, that'll let you kind of do the splits in there. So once you've got those crops all set, you just go in and say save. And that's updated everything in here. So real simple. Again, anytime you need to, you can go back and choose edit, change things around. If maybe later on I decide I planned on splitting that field and later on I decided no, it didn't work out, I planted the full amount of corn, it's really easy to go back and make changes. Like if I go back to that Haynes number, where's that field there? So if we say, okay, it wound up all going to corn, no big deal. I can delete these, change it to 100, and save it and update it.
Scott, we had a question go through here. I think you are hitting a great spot here to start with, because if you don't get things set up right here, you're going to really struggle with your field profitability. The question here is, what if I have a field that is half corn, half beans, but I still need, for example, pivot east, pivot west?
Yeah, so I'm guessing that example, your pivot east and pivot west would just be two different fields on it, is what I would think you'd probably be doing there on it. So if those are two fields, it'd just be two fields, and each of those could have corn and beans in them. Does that make sense?
I think so. Aaron, if that didn't answer your question, let us know. Yeah, it's one pivot, but half is one and half is the other.
So I think that would be my same thing. There's where I split the one that I just deleted, where I split it soybeans and corn with the number of acres. I mean, that's the key, is just the crop and the number of acres associated with each. It's when we're looking at this, it doesn't necessarily mean boundary-wise they have to be all tied together. It's just the number of acres of that crop in that field is what we're looking at there.
Yep,
I'll kind of
sounds
keep
good.
going and okay, cool, very good. Okay, so I'll just go through an example. I'm going to take a seed. We'll say that we're buying a brand new seed and we're going to plant it to this field in 26. So this seed is one, I'm just going to write a check for that seed right now. So I'm going to go to my account register. I'm going to pick my bank account and I'm going to add a new payment in here. And we're going to say I'm going to buy this from Farmers Co-op. So I'm going to buy an input and I'm going to buy seed. And this, I'm just going to do a brand new seed in here just so I've got a blank one to start out with to make my example work out. So I'm just going to do new and I'm going to call this. And my crop is going to be corn. And I'm planting it by the seed and buying it by the bag. My cost is about 300. And I'm going to say we're not buying our 25 seed. This is 26 now. And I'm going to say that we're buying 20 bags of that seed at $300 a bag. So here we're doing, again, it's a brand new seed. There's no inventory to start with. So this is going to put 20 bags of that seed into my inventory so I can start planting. And just say save. this point, I want to say yes. So we'll talk about this as I get to the field profit center, but I'm going to say update my input cost. So this is the key to traction. As I buy my inputs, as long as I keep saying yes to this is going to make sure that my cost on my fields match up to the costs that I'm buying that seed for. A little bit later, I'll do a second purchase and kind of show you how that works out. So we're just going to say yes here. Checkbook's all up to date. If I go to my resources and if I go to my inputs and go to my seed and look at 2026, right in there, I filter this just for items in inventory. I can see right there's that PO20326. There's the 20 bags at $300 a bag. If I click on that, I can see that's where I've gone in and bought it. So real simple now. I've just bought the seed. It's showing up in my inventory. So next step I'm going to do is we're going to go out and plant that home field that I just assigned corn to. So I'm going to go to my field records and I'm going to add a new record. I'm just doing this by hand. This could have been coming from John Deere Climate. And I'm going to do for 2026, not 2025. I'm going to go down and pick that home field that I just set up. My date and time, I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. My seed, though, I'm going to pick out that P0302 right there. I picked that seed out. Program now knows the cost per bag. It's got my average rate. I've got 40 bags that I used on that field. So again, I've got 40 bags I used on the field. I've only bought 20. Maybe I've got another bill I haven't put in yet or something like that. No big deal. Just going to go ahead and say yes. For this one, I'm just going to leave the equipment and the personnel out of it and save that field record. So again, what I did was just a simple field record, that seed, 40 bags on that field. So to kind of show you what I've done now, if I now go look at the inputs, look at that seed inventory again, my seed inventory now is a negative 20 bags. So I can see I bought 20 bags at $300 a bag. I've used 40 bags at $300 a bag. So my inventory is now negative 20 bags at $300 a bag. More importantly, though, and this is where we're really going to focus, if I go look at my field profit center and I pick out that field, and look at that home number one field, or that home field. What I'll see right there is that 40 bags at $300 a bag. So what we've done, I bought it into inventory, I've took it out of inventory, and now I put it onto the field. So let's say now I get a bill, and this time I'm going to do it as a bill instead of a check. So now I've got the bill for the rest of that seed. I'm catching my books up. I've already done my field records. So I want to go in, and this time I'm going to put in a bill. And I'm just going to add a new bill. Pick my entity out. Pick out who it is that I'm buying from. Same type thing I'll do. So I'll go in this time. I'll pick out. I'm going to say it's a seed that I'm buying. My input, I'm going to pick out that same seed corn. And we will, not 25, this is 26. We're going to buy another 20 bags, but these bags cost $400 a bag. Price went up on it. So we'll see the new balance on our inventory is 0. It was previously negative 20. I bought 20 more, so now we're to 0. Hit apply. That's all I'm going to do with this bill. I'm not going to put anything else into it. Save and close. Same question. You want to update the cost of the inputs? Yes, I do. So what I will see now, if I go in and look at my resources, look at my inputs and seed's not showing up anymore because I've got it in inventory. I'm going to turn that in inventory off because it's got nothing in inventory. If I look at it now I can see I've got 0 inventory in there. 20 at $400, 20 at $300. It's averaged that to $350. You'll see it's updated my field profit center for that. So if I go look again at that field profit center report, I can see that field now is costing me $3.50 a bag. So what Traction's going to do, I think the couple key things to point out with all of this is that the order that you do things in Traction really doesn't matter. If maybe you're behind on your bookkeeping and you start entering your field records before you put in the bills or the payments for inputs, it's not that big a deal. We'll catch the cost up when you do it. If you do it the other way and put the bills in before you do the field records, we'll calculate it and get it there. The other real important thing to point out is make sure that when you're buying these, either through a bill or through let's see if we can find it here. I've got some messed up data, but when you buy things in here, you want to make sure that, and this isn't the same one that I put in, that when you buy these, you want to watch that crop here. The key of the way Tractions work, when we figure that average cost, we're going to look at just the cost for that year. So seed may not be the best example, but if I've got a chemical that I'm buying the same chemical year after year after year, when we figure out the cost for putting to the field, we're only going to look at the bills and the payments for the year that that's associated with. So that kind of makes it so that you're looking at better information with it. So I'm going to take that field, and we'll just do one more thing with that field. Let's say I've got a cash rent bill out there. So I'm going to add a new bill in here. This time I'll pick out whoever the landlord is. This time I'm going to go to items. I'm doing this as a bill. I could also do it as a payment if it was actually writing the check right now. So I will go to services other, and I'm going to pick out my rent expense, land. I'm going to put in the amount of that rent. Ooh, extra zero. I'm going to go down to my cost allocation and allocate that to my zones. So my example, again, just doing a simple example on here. So I'm going to allocate it all to that home field. Hit apply, hit save. And now as I go look at that field report again, I'm just adding cost onto it. So now in addition to having the seed corn, I've also got my rent expense down there, got my total cost per acre, my total cost. That's what's going to start building that cost up over time in here. So the last thing I'll do, and this may be kind of seeming like I'm jumping ahead, is go in and say, okay, so I'm not going to do all the other field records. Let's go ahead and just put a harvest field record in and kind of show what happens after I do a harvest to that field profit center report. So I will go to my field records area, add one more field record in there. This one will be a harvest. Pick out that same field. This could be done from a yield monitor. It could be scale tickets. In my case, I'm just going to say it averaged 200 bushels an acre. And I haven't sold any of that crop yet, but I'm going to say maybe it's 550 a bushel. And I'm going to go in and just auto create loads, make a load and tell it what bin it's going into. And what this will do is if I go down to my accounting reports, it's now updated. When I look at it now, that's what's getting me now where I've got my cost per bushel on there. It's got my yield, so it's figured my cost per bushel, cost per acre, my total cost on it. It's also figuring a net income value. And that net income, what this will be as I start selling the crop, that sale of the crop will actually get averaged back into this to figure those values out. So I'll open up for a couple minutes here and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, Scott, you touched on this already, but that year is what trips up a lot of people. And I noticed when you did that harvest record, it remembered 2026. So think that's the key thing for everybody to know is once you do it and change that year, then the next time you do a purchase, deposit, or in this case, a field record, the software is remembering the current year, 2026, moving forward.
Can you guys hear me if I ask a question voice
Yeah,
wise?
yeah, yeah. Go
Okay.
go right ahead. Yep.
So back when you were doing the bill on the seed, how my world works is we pre-order the seed and usually pay for it in December. That puts it all into inventory. And then in January or in April, when I go to plant it, sometimes my seed guy will say, I can't get those 24 bags, but I can't go into that. I can't do anything with it because I already paid the bill on it.
Yeah, I'll show you what I would do for those. So when you do these bills, could either be done as a bill or payment. The same options are there. So I'll just pick that same. I'm going to do Keystone this time. When you're buying an input, you can either do an input or a prepay. Is this really kind of like what you're doing a prepay in December and then taking delivery on that later on?
Well, I suppose I could be.
Yeah, so the advantage on this, if I absolutely know if I'm taking delivery of something, it should be an input. If I know I'm going to take delivery of it, I'm prepaying fuel. And I always take delivery of fuel, do it that way. If it's seed varieties, and those seed varieties may or may not change, probably the easiest way to do that is to go in and say I'm doing a prepay expense, pick my seed expense, and I think I'm just going to make a new prepay here because I haven't done any for this vendor. And then put in the amount of the seed or the amount I'm paying. So I'm paying $10,000. That's $10,000. What that's going to do is that when I pay that bill, it's going to put it to seed expense. But that prepay then is available for me to use to buy inputs later. So buying those inputs later, I can just add a new bill in and pick out the same vendor. So now if I take delivery of a seed, I'll pick out the seed. I'll pick out whatever that seed is. And say maybe I took 50 bags of seed, 300 a bag, say 10. And in this case, I'm not going to owe anything. I just want to take that off of that prepay. So here I've got an option to pay with prepay. I can pick that prepay there. Shows I've got $10,000. If I use 3,000 off that prepay, that will let me. So this is just going to take it out of that prepay, put it into the actual seed variety for your inventory. So that's probably the best way to handle it. The other way, if you've put in a seed variety that's the wrong one, you can do negatives in here. So if maybe I bought a different one, I could also go in and pick out the one that I originally bought. If it was that one, do a minus 10 at 300, and that would do the same thing, just takes it out of one inventory and puts it into the other. So either way will work. I know a lot of people like the prepays just because it gives you a dollar amount that you can use to buy inputs later on. Does that
Aaron,
make
when you did,
sense?
yeah, Aaron, when you did that, was it a bill that you put in, or was it just a payment in the account register area?
I put I put in the bill because that puts in my seed and the cost of the seed. And then I paid the bill on December 5th with that money, and so
Yeah.
I don't think I put it in as a prepay, but I might have.
If you
Barb's been teaching me, so I might have.
It'd be common that I think some people would just put it as a bill, and then Scott, could he just edit the bill in that case and just change the variety, or is that?
After I
or
paid the, yeah,
yeah, that if you haven't paid it, yes. Once you paid it, no.
and I've already
Gotcha.
paid, so that's where the
Yeah.
moves in tough. is all, but that's fine. You can keep
Your
going. I don't know.
case probably, no, your case probably the easiest right now is just to do a $0 bill, do a positive to the right seed and a negative to the one that you originally put in there, and that'll fix your books for you.
Well,
Yeah, in
hopefully it
that
doesn't
memo
happen.
area.
All the seed I ordered will be the seed I get, but you never know.
Yeah. And if you're making the adjustment, like what Scott's showing here with a plus and a minus to that inventory, just on the bottom there for that memo, I would just go ahead and just put some sort of description of what you're trying to do here. So
Yeah.
if you're ever to print a detailed general ledger report down the road, you'd have that information. Scott, we have a few other questions here.
I see.
If you put field record in the wrong year and correct it, will it still show up in a report like FarmWorks used to?
Everything will be tied to the year that field record's in. So if you do it to the wrong year, we don't have a way to change the year once it's in there. The only thing you could do is you'd have to edit it, delete it, and then put it in for the right year. But everything, I think for like the field profit center reports, the inventory, all that's tied to the crop year. I think some of these other like planting reports, some of these are more date now. They're tied to the crop year too. So you're going to want it to that right crop year at some point. And I see there's a
Okay.
question about doing a seeding record to multiple fields. You absolutely can. So if I do, when I get to this screen where I pick fields, I can pick, if I want to do a seeding record to 2 different fields, I could select those 2 fields. And this then is going to ask me for the total amount. So whatever that is, that rate is going to be the rate that goes across the acres on each of them. So that'll do exactly what that question was.
Yeah, and the answer for Susan is yes. I know Scott, you did the bill example, which is in plus, by the way. That bill feature that he's shown how to do that, that's all in that plus level. But you don't necessarily have to enter it that way. You could do it like he's showing you right here as a payment and just go right into the account register and just plug that transaction in this way.
Same options there.
It's really a preference whether you want it to show up as a bill to track your bills because you just haven't paid them yet, or just go right into here and just do it one time and be done with it. It really depends on your accounting practice and how you want that to show up on your books. Good questions here. I think we got through all of them, Scott. Here's another one. I have prepaid inputs and then they came with our inputs and sprayed it on our field.
Yeah, on that side, if you want to show the inputs on it, you're going to want to buy them into inventory. So it'll be the same type thing. If that was put to a prepay originally, you're going to want to take it out of that prepay. So we'll go in and say maybe I just have got a bill from the co-op, and that bill has, I'll just pick out a chemical here. So I'll add that to inventory, and then if I had custom application fees, those fees then would be going to an account like custom hire expense. I put in whatever the amount was that they charged, and I would allocate that to the fields that it went to. And that's going to add those 10 gallons into inventory. I then need to put in a field record for what the co-op did. So that field record would just be like the seeding record. It would just be for the co-op's application to that field, and that'll get those costs to the field for it. Did I answer that question?
Well, I think it probably comes down to if you're going to go down the prepay route and actually do a prepay, you have to offset it with your inputs. Like actually, when you take delivery of those inputs, you have to
Yeah, sorry,
reduce
Brian,
your
I skipped
prepay.
that.
You have to reduce your prepay and then increase your inventory is what you got to do. Um, yep, you're welcome. So it's prepays get a little, I'm not saying tricky. It's just there's a couple steps to them. You're going to buy prepay, and then later when you take delivery, you have to do yet another transaction to reduce the prepay, and increase the inventory. And that's why I like the notes and the memo area and traction. When you get to that screen, I would be very descriptive of what you're doing when you do those type of transactions, just so you have the history and the records to show for that. Can you show equipment costs set up and how fuel is tracked per field? Um, Good question, Jeff. That is definitely probably a whole webinar on its own. We did that last week, right? The equipment cost webinar. There's just a lot to that one. I don't know if we can cover all that today, but we do have a webinar recording on that one already, and then we're doing another webinar in 2 weeks that will cover that in more detail.
And that 2 weeks will really be a deep dive into taking the same field setup equipment, show fuel cost, repairs cost, ownership cost, and then also get into overhead costs. So there's a whole lot to go through there, and we'll really do a deep dive in 2 weeks on that, or the video from last week.
I'll share that with you, Jeff, the little video that we did on that already, just so you have something for today, and then you can come back and join us for that webinar.
The only
Good
thing I'd
questions.
mention, anybody going to Louisville next week, Brian and I will be there in the North Wing. So feel free and stop by. If you got any questions, we'll be glad to help you out.
Yeah, I don't think they're calling for a foot of snow next week, so
Hopefully not. Hopefully warm.
yeah. Also, we'll be at Commodity Classic too, so if you plan on being in San Antonio the end of this month, we'll be there as well. Be happy to answer any question you have. And also any other inputs you have on how to keep improving it. We have somebody with a question, Aaron.
Yeah, I was. I don't know how many of your folks are on Eastern time, but if you could make these the 9:30 your time, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, good
I'm
good
not one of those
suggestion there.
farmers that gets up at 6 a.m. all year round. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you all for joining us today. I know I'm sure you got lots on your plate. Um, we like doing these just because we want to give you a little bit of sample of something. Maybe there's a few nuggets that you can take away from today, and that way you're off and running for 2026. Yeah, so this last slide here, just to put a plug in for future webinars here. We have a couple of them on Thursday. We'll get into FS and Keystone Cooperative. So if you've got business that you have with those two companies, we got some integration on the bill side that we'll be going through on those. So love to have you if you can make it to those webinars. And then the one that we pointed out a few minutes ago on February 17th, that's the equipment costing. We'll talk about fuel and setting up ownership costs and going through everything that we know about equipment and how to track equipment on the fields and costs will be covered on February 17th. Okay. I think with that, Scott, yeah, thank you for helping us out with this webinar. And we hope to have you at a future event or farm show or any place that we're going to be at. We'll love to see you. All right. Thanks, everyone.